The air was thick with silence before the storm. Ethan Miller stood frozen as the digital screen in Times Square flashed the devastating headline. His company had collapsed overnight. His chest pounded like war drums, sweat dripping down his temples as he whispered, "It's gone. Everything's gone." Crowds passed, indifferent to his unraveling world. A rival CEO's smirk replayed in his mind, mocking his downfall. His phone buzzed endlessly with calls and messages, each reminder another stab to his pride. He staggered against the cold glass wall of a bank, his reflection fractured like his future. Betrayal stung deeper than the financial ruin, for it was someone he once called a partner. Rage and fear tangled in his stomach as neon lights glared above, making his defeat brutally public. Ethan clenched his fists, muttering, "They think this is my end, but I'll show them what survival looks like." Ethan stumbled into a dimly lit diner, the clatter of plates masking his storm of thoughts. He slumped into a booth, running his hands through his hair, whispering, "Why me? Why now?" The waitress poured coffee without asking, her kindness unnoticed as he stared into the dark liquid like it held answers. His chest tightened as betrayal replayed in his mind. His confidant Sarah Hayes had warned him, but he refused to believe. The noise of laughter from another table cut deep, a reminder that the world moved on while his collapsed. Ethan pressed his palms against his eyes, muttering, "I have to think. I can't let this be the end." The smell of burnt toast and cheap coffee mixed with desperation. The night outside raged on, but inside, his resolve sparked like a fragile flame. The clock ticked past midnight as Sarah Hayes arrived, sliding into the booth opposite Ethan. Her eyes scanned his face, sharp with concern. Sarah said, "You look destroyed, Ethan. I told you not to trust him." He let out a broken laugh, staring at the table. "You were right," he admitted. "But I didn't think betrayal would come from someone I called brother." Sarah leaned forward, her voice firm. "You still have your vision. Don't let this ruin you." Ethan clenched his jaw, whispering, "Vision won't pay the bills, Sarah." "Ah." Her hand rested over his trembling one, grounding him. Their silence was heavy, filled with truths neither dared say aloud. Outside, thunder cracked, echoing the storm brewing inside him. The door slammed open, a gust of rain following a man in a black coat, Victor Stone, the rival CEO. Ethan's heart sank as he caught sight of the smug smile. Victor said, "Didn't expect to see you here, Miller. Looks like the empire crumbled faster than I thought." Sarah's eyes narrowed, her protective glare sharp as a blade. Ethan's voice was low, controlled. "You'll regret this, Victor. Every empire falls eventually, even yours." Victor chuckled, sliding a coin across the counter as if mocking Ethan's poverty. The tension hung thick as Sarah whispered, "Let's leave, Ethan. He's not worth it." But Ethan's clenched fists said otherwise. Ethan stormed out into the rain, the neon lights flickering above him. His shoes splashed in puddles as Sarah chased after him, shouting, "Don't let him break you!" Ethan turned, rain streaking down his face, jaw tight. "He already has," he said bitterly. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to face her. "Then fight back. Prove to him you're stronger." The storm raged, lightning flashing across the sky as Ethan's silhouette stood defiant. For a moment, despair warred with determination. He whispered, almost to himself, "If this is rock bottom, then it's where I'll rebuild." Sarah's eyes softened, her voice breaking. "Then I'll stand with you." The storm roared as his resolve quietly ignited. Ethan sat alone in his small apartment, the glow of the desk lamp casting long shadows on stacks of unpaid bills. His eyes drifted toward an old sketchbook filled with early business ideas, pages worn with time. He whispered, "This was never about money. It was about proving I could build something lasting." He remembered his childhood, watching his father struggle to keep a failing store alive. That pain carved the fire in him. Yet now, history felt like it was repeating itself. Ethan clenched the book tight, his hands shaking. "I won't let their doubts define me," he muttered. The walls seemed to close in, heavy with silence, but his spirit fought against the weight. He swore to himself, This fall won't bury me. It will forge me. Sarah entered without knocking, her sharp eyes scanning the chaotic room. She said, "Ethan, you can't keep drowning in this. You're better than failure." Ethan exhaled sharply, frustration etched in every line of his face. "You don't get it, Sarah. They see me as nothing but a wreck now." She stepped closer, her tone softer. "I see the man who fought for his vision when no one else believed. That fire isn't gone. You just forgot where it started." He looked at her, voice trembling. "And if I fail again?" Sarah's hand rested gently on his shoulder. "Then you'll rise again, because that's who you are." Her faith cut through his despair like sunlight piercing storm clouds. Later that night, Ethan stood on the balcony, city lights stretching endlessly below. His thoughts spiraled as he whispered, "What if they're right? What if I'm not built for this?" The sound of distant traffic blended with his heartbeat. A flash of memory hit him, his father handing him the keys to their old shop saying, "Build something better than I could." Ethan gripped the railing, chest tight. The cold wind bit his face, yet clarity slowly emerged. He muttered, "This dream isn't about me anymore. It's about everyone who doubted and everyone who believed." The weight didn't vanish, but it shifted into resolve. The skyline became less of a threat, and more of a battlefield waiting for him to return. The next morning, Ethan met with David Carter, his mentor, at a quiet corner cafe. David, seasoned and calm, sipped his coffee before saying, "You let anger cloud your judgment, Ethan. That's why you lost." Ethan flinched, words cutting deeper than expected. "So you think I should give up?" David leaned in, eyes sharp. "No. I think you should learn. Every empire built on ego collapses. Build yours on grit and clarity." Ethan's fists loosened as his mentor's wisdom pierced the fog. He said softly, "I was too blind to see it." David's tone softened, almost fatherly. "You're not blind, you're just not done yet." Ethan felt the weight shift inside, not gone, but becoming fuel. That night, Ethan stood before a whiteboard filled with scribbled plans, Sarah beside him with arms crossed. He said, "If I rebuild, I need to do it smarter. No shortcuts, no weak links." Sarah nodded firmly. "Then start by trusting the right people this time." Ethan studied the board, every line a reminder of what went wrong and what could go right. His voice cracked but steadied. "They think I'm broken, but this," he tapped the board, "is where it begins again." Sarah's lips curved into the faintest smile. "That's the Ethan I know." The room buzzed with an energy that hadn't existed in days. For the first time since the collapse, hope stirred, fragile but alive. The bank office smelled of polished wood and old money, but for Ethan, it reeked of rejection. The manager slid papers across the table with a rehearsed smile. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, but your loan request has been denied." Ethan's chest burned as he leaned forward. "You don't understand. This isn't a gamble, it's a revival." The manager shook his head. "Revival or not, your credit record speaks louder than your words." Ethan forced himself to stand tall, though his legs trembled. Outside the glass walls, suits bustled, indifferent to his collapse. As he walked out, his reflection on the polished floor mocked him. He whispered, "If they want back me, I'll find another way." His voice cracked, but his resolve hardened. Later that evening, Victor Stone's shadow loomed larger. Ethan scrolled through news feeds, each headline worse than the last. Victor's company was expanding aggressively, swallowing small firms Ethan once dreamed of partnering with. Sarah slammed her hand on the desk. "He's not just competing, Ethan. He's trying to erase you." Ethan's jaw clenched as the rival's smug photo flashed across the screen. "Then I'll fight twice as hard," he muttered. Sarah's eyes softened with fear. "You can't fight him alone. He has money, influence, and power." Ethan met her gaze with fire. "Then I'll use what he doesn't have, heart." The words felt fragile, but they carried a weight only desperation could forge. At a cramped co-working space, Ethan pitched his ideas to his old friend and business partner, Lucas Reed. Lucas, once his biggest supporter, now leaned back with arms crossed, skeptical. "Ethan, we've been at this for years. Maybe it's time to cut losses." Ethan's face twisted with disbelief. Cut losses? This is my life's work, Lucas. You believed in this once. Lucas's voice was calm but sharp. Belief doesn't pay bills. Investors want results, and you're offering dreams. Ethan's hands trembled as betrayal flickered in his eyes. So you're walking away? Lucas looked down, guilt mixed with greed. I'm choosing survival. The words carved deeper than any enemy's blow. Desperation drove Ethan to a meeting with investor Olivia Grant. She skimmed his proposal with sharp eyes, her silence heavier than words. Ethan said quickly, I know I failed before, but this time it's different. Olivia looked up, expression unreadable. Different how? Numbers don't lie. His throat tightened, but he pushed on. Because now I know what's at stake. I've lived the fall. I won't make the same mistakes. She leaned back, arms folded. I've heard that line 100 times. Convince me why you're not just another desperate dreamer. Ethan's voice cracked under pressure. Because I'd rather die trying than live knowing I gave up. Olivia's brow lifted, but her face remained unreadable. That night, Ethan sat in darkness, the only light coming from the city outside his window. His chest rose and fell in heavy breaths, the weight of rejection and betrayal pressing down. Sarah entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She set one beside him, her voice soft. You don't have to carry this alone. Ethan didn't look at her, eyes locked on the skyline. If I fall again, Sarah, it'll destroy me completely. She sat beside him, their shoulders touching. Then I'll be here to catch you. Silence hung, broken only by the hum of the city. Slowly Ethan whispered, they want me to quit, but I can't, not yet. And in that fragile moment, despair and hope coexisted in uneasy balance. The co-working space was nearly empty, humming with tired lights and the buzz of servers. Ethan hunched over audit logs while the cursor blinked like a taunt. David said, patterns don't lie, only people do. Ethan rubbed his eyes and pointed at timestamps. These entries overlap my lockouts, he muttered. David leaned in, voice low and steady. This is an inside hand, not a brute force. Rage stirred, then doubt. Ethan said, who had the keys besides me? The silence answered faster than logic. David said, list them, then test each alibi. Ethan swallowed the dread. If it's who I think it is, I won't forgive it. David held his gaze. You don't have to forgive, but you must act with precision. Lucas arrived late, face tight, eyes avoiding the printouts on the table. Ethan said, explain the duplicate credentials tied to your device. Lucas forced a laugh that died fast. You're reaching, he said, voice thin. David slid a page forward, highlighting transfers and logins. Ethan's pulse hammered. You sold our pipeline to Victor. Lucas's glare flickered, then hardened. I protected myself when you stopped protecting us. Ethan felt the floor tilt. You were my partner, he said, each word heavy. Lucas said, I'm done losing for your pride. The room shrank around betrayal. David said, leave now, and expect counsel to follow. Lucas turned, not sorry, only cornered. Ethan stepped into the stairwell, air raw with dust and rain chill, and let the anger break. He whispered, he knew every weak scene. Sarah reached him fast, eyes bright with worry. Sarah said, say it out loud before it eats you. He stared at the concrete. Lucas gutted us, and I handed him the knife. She didn't flinch. Own your part, then reclaim what's yours. He breathed hard, fighting the shake in his hands. I should have seen it, he said. Sarah said, seeing is second. Acting is first. The storm outside rattled the door. Ethan lifted his head. Then, we act tonight. Her nod was small and fierce. We act with proof. Back at the whiteboard, Sarah sketched a recovery map with brutal clarity. Sarah said, cut legacy access, rotate keys, quarantine vendors, and alert counsel. Ethan nodded, absorbing the sting. I thought trust was culture, he said. Sarah met his stare. Trust is earned and audited. He exhaled steadier. We go to Olivia with evidence and a leaner plan. Sarah said, only if the plan survives hard questions. He erased old vanity metrics and wrote outcomes instead. No more optics, only traction. David's text pinged, council ready, timeline tight. Ethan said, we publish a statement, then request a meeting. Sarah's voice was firm. And you apologize for blind spots. By evening, the statement was live, the inbox aflame, and Ethan's phone lit with an unknown call. Victor said, sell me the remains and walk away with dignity. Ethan paced, jaw clenched. You engineered rot, then call it mercy. Victor's chuckle scraped the line. Markets reward winners, not martyrs. Ethan stared at the city's hard lights. I'll let customers decide the winner. Victor said you have hours before your burn rate answers for you. The call ended cold. Sarah said, he's scared you might rise. Ethan squared his shoulders. Then we pitch Olivia, at first light, with the truth and the roadmap I'd dangle. The fear stayed, but purpose stood taller. The dawn broke with gray skies as Ethan rehearsed his pitch in front of the whiteboard. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded like a drumline. Sarah watched silently, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Ethan said, this is not just numbers. It's resilience, it's survival, it's proof. His words echoed in the small room, the weight of every failure woven into them. He closed his eyes, inhaled, and whispered, this time, no fear. Sarah stepped closer, her tone calm but fierce. Then carry that fire into the room. Don't let Victor see weakness. Let Olivia see the man who won't quit. Ethan nodded slowly, gripping the marker until his knuckles whitened. Today, it's war. And I'm ready to fight. The boardroom loomed with cold glass walls, and a table polished to a mirror. Olivia Grant sat at the head, her gaze sharp as a scalpel. Ethan laid his proposal down, voice firm. I'm not asking for rescue. I'm offering return on grit, on vision, on survival. Olivia leaned back, silent, testing his resolve. Sarah sat nearby, scanning the room, ready to support. Ethan's hands moved with conviction as he outlined lean strategies, his voice cracking only once before strengthening. I've lost everything already. The only direction left is forward. Olivia's eyes narrowed, then softened just slightly. Convince me you can outlast your enemies, she said. Ethan met her stare, unblinking. Because I already have. Suddenly the doors opened, and Victor Stone strode in. Uninvited. Rain still dripping from his coat. His smirk was poison. Careful, Olivia, he's selling hope, not profit, Victor said, circling like a predator. Ethan's fists clenched, but his voice stayed steady. You thrive on crushing others, Victor. I thrive on building. Victor leaned close, eyes gleaming. Building? You're patching holes in a sinking ship. Olivia's gaze shifted between them, calculating. Ethan raised his voice, clear and sharp. The difference is this, when my ship sinks, I swim. You only know how to drown others. The room froze, silence sharp as glass. For the first time, Victor's smirk faltered. Olivia raised a hand, silencing the clash. Her voice cut through the air. Enough. I invest in conviction, not theatrics. She turned to Ethan. Numbers are fragile. Show me your backbone. Ethan inhaled, gaze steady. I failed, yes, I bled for it, but I rebuilt, smarter, leaner, hungrier. I don't just want to win, I refuse to quit. His words echoed in the cold room, raw but unshaken. Victor scoffed, but Olivia's eyes lingered on Ethan's fire. Sarah whispered, almost to herself, that's the Ethan I know. Olivia leaned forward, tapping her pen once. You have one chance to prove traction. Do not waste it. Ethan nodded, voice low. I won't. Hours later, Ethan and Sarah stepped out into the storm-washed streets. The city glistened under neon and rain, alive with possibility. Sarah looked at him, cautious but proud. Do you think she'll back you? Ethan exhaled, shoulders heavy yet lighter than before. "I don't know," he admitted, "but for once I spoke without fear." He lifted his face toward the rain, feeling the sting as freedom, not punishment. Sarah smiled softly. "That's victory, Ethan, no matter the outcome." Ethan's jaw set, eyes sharp on the skyline. "It's not the end, it's the turning point." The storm rumbled, but for the first time, Ethan walked into it with purpose, not dread. Morning crept in with soft light as Ethan reopened the deck, tracing every metric like a prayer. His inbox chimed with Olivia's reply, crisp and unsentimental. Olivia said, "Conditional term sheet, 30 days to prove traction." His breath stalled, then steadied into purpose. Sarah skimmed the milestones and nodded once, sharp as a metronome. Sarah said, "This is fair, and it's winnable." Doubt flickered, but resolve burned hotter. Ethan said, "We accept, and we start now." He wrote the plan like a contract with himself. The city woke outside, but inside, a different dawn arrived. Hope stopped whispering and finally spoke in commands. Ethan met David on a quiet river path, wind cutting clean lines through the morning. David said, "You won a chance, not a battle." Ethan nodded, absorbing each word like flint strikes. David traced strategy in simple truths. David said, "Protect focus, publish weekly proof, and hire for character." Ethan watched the water move without hurry. He said, "No spin, only signals." David's gaze softened, the teacher seeing the student arrive. David said, "Let discipline be louder than hope." Ethan let the sentence settle and anchor him. The river kept its pace, and so did his heartbeat. At noon, Olivia joined them in the war room, presence quiet but decisive. Olivia said, "Milestone 1 is customer validation, not applause." Ethan outlined a lean pilot with ruthless clarity. Sarah marked owners and deadlines, voice steady as stone. Sarah said, "I'll own operations and security." Olivia's eyes held approval without warmth. Olivia said, "Report weekly, miss nothing, hide nothing." Ethan signed the rollout checklist like a pledge. He said, "We build trust in public." The plan ended with silence that felt like gravity. No fanfare, only work that could not lie. Launch day arrived without pageantry, just a quiet switch flipping live. The dashboard blinked awake, a heartbeat in pixels. Sarah said, "First trial user onboarded," barely masking a smile. A bug surfaced and died under Ethan's hands, quick and clean. Feedback hit their inbox, blunt and gold. Ethan said, "Ship the fix, then ask for the referral." The second user landed, then the third, small but undeniable. Olivia's one-line reply read, "Noted. Noted." No confetti, only momentum. In the hum of fans and keys, belief returned as measurable fact. By night, the pilot crossed its first milestone, and the room exhaled. Ethan drafted the update with a steadier hand than pride. He said, "We hit the target, owned the misses, and learned fast." Sarah read it once and nodded. Sarah said, "Ship it." The send button clicked like a gavel. Olivia replied with 2 words that felt like sun. Olivia said, "Proceed confidently." Ethan leaned back, not triumphant, but changed. He said, "We climb by inches, and that's enough." Outside the city pulsed, and inside, his fear finally learned to be quiet. The office felt different that evening, alive but calm, as if the walls themselves knew something had shifted. Ethan sat at his desk, the glow of the monitor painting his face in soft blue, while the graphs climbed steadily upward. For months he had stared at empty charts and broken hopes, yet now the lines told a different story. Slow, sure progress, built not on illusion, but on grit. He whispered to himself, "Proof, not promises, not dreams, proof." Sarah leaned against the edge of the table, arms folded, watching him with the faintest smile that carried pride and relief. She said, "You've carried this weight long enough, Ethan. It's time to realize you're not just surviving anymore, you're building." Ethan looked at her, his eyes tired but shining with something deeper than victory. I thought losing everything meant the story was over, he admitted softly. Sarah shook her head, voice steady. It was only chapter 1. The quiet hum of the computers blended with the stillness, grounding the moment. For the first time in years, Ethan allowed himself to breathe without fear, leaning back in his chair and letting the silence speak louder than words. The dining room buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, the kind of noise Ethan hadn't heard around his family in years. Mark clapped him on the shoulder, his voice loud but tinged with something new, respect. Didn't think you'd pull through, Ethan, but I was wrong. Ethan smirked, raising his glass with a half shrug. So did I. But I guess being too stubborn to quit has its perks. Their mother, cautious and pragmatic, lifted her own glass, eyes soft but shining. To learning the hard way and proving us wrong. Laughter rippled across the table, a sound that loosened knots inside Ethan's chest that had been tied for years. Sarah, sitting close, leaned toward him, her voice low and knowing. See? Even they see it now. Ethan glanced at her, smile softening, voice quieter. I didn't do it to prove them wrong. I did it because I couldn't let myself stay down. The words landed like truth, unpolished and raw but whole. Around him, the faces of his family glowed in warm light, no longer doubters but witnesses to his resilience. For once, the room was filled, not with judgment, but pride. Far across the city, Victor Stone stood alone in his high-rise, framed by storm clouds pressing against the glass. The skyline stretched endless, but tonight, it felt hostile. He tightened his jaw, staring at the red numbers glowing from his company's reports. How did he crawl back? He muttered under his breath. His assistant entered cautiously, folder trembling in her hands. Sir, Miller's company is gaining ground. The press is starting to notice. Victor slammed the papers onto the glass desk, the echo sharp in the cavernous room. His voice cut like ice. Ground he'll lose. He doesn't understand what power means. Yet in the reflection staring back from the glass, Victor saw not confidence but a flicker of doubt. The man who once ruled with arrogance now stood shadowed by cracks in his empire. He turned his back on the city, but the weight of Ethan's rise pressed in, undeniable. For the first time the predator felt hunted, the king realizing his crown no longer fit as neatly as it once had. The co-working space buzzed with fresh energy, filled now with new hires and the sound of possibility. Ethan stood at the front, sleeves rolled, eyes alive with conviction as he addressed the group. We're not just building a product, we're building proof. Proof that resilience beats sabotage, proof that integrity outlasts greed. The small crowd leaned in, their laptops glowing, their notes frantic. Sarah stood beside him, posture steady, nodding with quiet pride. Ethan continued, voice firm but warm. Victor tried to bury us, but instead he planted us, and now we grow. Applause erupted, some hesitant but growing stronger, with each clap, until the room vibrated with shared belief. Whiteboards behind them brimmed with plans, sticky notes like battle flags. Ethan looked out at the faces, no longer strangers, but comrades bound to his vision. For the first time, his dream was not his alone. It belonged to every soul in the room, every hand ready to build, every heart ready to fight. He smiled, not from ego but from purpose, and the team smiled back, carrying the spark he had lit. Late that night, Ethan stood on the rooftop, the city sprawling endlessly below him, alive with light and movement. The wind tugged at his shirt, but he stood firm, unshaken. He whispered, I was broken, betrayed, and buried, yet here I stand. His phone buzzed with new opportunities, but he ignored it, savoring the quiet. His mind wandered to Sarah's loyalty, David's wisdom, Olivia's challenge, and even Victor's shadow. All of them had shaped him, sharpened him. He looked at the skyline, his reflection flickering faintly in the wet rooftop glass. This isn't the end, he said softly. It's only the beginning. The city pulsed back, alive, as if answering him, and for the first time, Ethan felt not fear but belonging. The man who once stumbled under neon defeat now stood above it, ready for everything to come.